You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we've a case of mistaken identity in FAB Facts.
Everything is absolutely perfect in the Randomiser.
and David Tremont returns for part 3 of his interview.
That's all coming up in Pod 105
of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Sorry, where are we? What number? 100 and what?
Well, we are broadcasting live from the planet Verspona. And this is Pod 105 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast. If you don't know what we mean by the planet Verspona, you soon will, because Richard James has been in something, and we know he never mentions the things he's been in. But in this case, I think it might get a couple of mentions.
Planet of Bone.
That was really great dramatic
Just the
pause
bone
there between yes, the planet of Bone 0x. So we'll come to that later on, but for now I'm Jamie Anderson and you are?
Oh, well, I'm still Richard James, and you're listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. We'll be here for the next hour and a half or so with all the usual, and I'm going to say it, gubbins.
Oh,
there you go.
Love your gubbins, Richard.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've got Fab Facts coming up shortly, of course. I wonder what the book will reveal this week. We've got Chris Dale's amazing Randomiser coming up a little later. I wonder what the Randomiser will reveal this week. And we've also got part 3 of David Tremont's interview. I wonder what David Tremont will reveal this week. You see, there's a recurring theme here, isn't there?
There are a lot of unknowns in this podcast, but thankfully all within a known structure. It includes, as Richard said, all of your favourites, including Fab Facts and Gerry Anderson News and all that stuff, and some other bits and pieces from around the Podsteron universe, probably.
Yeah, of course, we've got some emails because people have been mailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We'll be heading on over to our Facebook group to see what they've been up to there, and I'll be reading out not only some tweets where people have been hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast over the last week, but also over on Apple Podcasts. There we are. I still want to say iTunes.
Podcast Apples.
A few reviews that caught my eye.
Oh, we love those, especially the rude ones.
Yes, except they're the ones I'm going to be reading out.
Perfect. Okay, well, I look forward to that. Yeah. So let's kick this whole thing off, Richard. I know we've already sort of kicked it off, but that was the warm-up. This is the real kick-off. It's Fab Facts.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Hang on, are you saying that everything I just said was a warm-up for Fab Facts?
I'm not saying you're the warm-up act. I'm just saying that introduction is getting the audience ready so that they're fully prepared for Fab Facts, whether they like it or not. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, well, there we are. Yeah, fine. Carry on.
You're the sort of the whipped cream on the... well, okay, yeah, fine. You're the amuse-bouche. That's very much you, Richard. Anyway, this is Fab Facts. This is Fab Facts, where we have a book of Fab Facts. I flip through the book, and at a random point, Richard shouts Fab, which means I stop flicking, and then I read you a Fab Fact from the page on which we have stopped when Richard shouts Fab. Does that make sense, Richard?
It makes sense to me.
And what about you, audience? Okay, that's great.
That's a relief.
We will push on. So here we go with the flicking of Fab Facts.
Fab! Oh!
Richard, you are a fan of the 60s, aren't you? We are back in 1967.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, good.
Captain Scarlet, the pilot episode.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember what happens in the first episode that kicks off the whole conflict?
Oh, well, it's the mistaken conflagration on Mars.
That's a great word. I'm not sure it's the right one, but we'll take it. Yes, interestingly, bear in mind there's some rather exciting 0x news that's just happened. We are in the Martian exploration vehicle, in fact, of the 0x. Isn't that weird? This happens on the Gerry Anderson Podcast quite a lot, doesn't it? Anyway, so it all starts in the MEV, as you know, where Captain Black makes a bit of a boo-boo I think it's probably what Spectrum called it on the official report.
Almost certainly.
He thinks the Mysterons are going to attack them. He fires first, destroys the Mysteron complex, and so kicks off that whole war with the Mysterons.
It is, as I said,
a problem.
A mistaken conflagration.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
I mean,
okay, we'll agree.
Couldn't be any clearer.
We'll agree to agree. Anyway, the one you see in the episode, the shots inside the MEV and the crew there are not the ones that made it to the final episode.
Eh?
Yeah. So, originally, you will see, well, in fact, you do see the characters Lieutenant Dean and Navigator Conway.
Yeah.
They are not the puppets that were in the original shoot. All of the interior stuff in the MEV had to be reshot because it was felt by the editors and the production team that Lieutenant Dean looked too much like Captain Scarlet.
Oh.
This is a problem that we've heard puppeteers and directors and many others who are involved in the show saying that at the new scale, those puppets, the new proportions, the faces were so small that quite often the characters look quite similar. The original Dean puppet was a young chap with black hair, which probably wouldn't have been so bad, except that Dean was also wearing a red 0X flight suit. So he looked super, super similar to Captain Scarlet. You do still see those puppets, though, through the series. The original Dean and Conway keep turning up in multiple Scarlet episodes because it would have been a terrible waste just to chuck them in the skip. They waited till the end of the series to do that. So you do actually see them again together as two medical students in Operation Time, just at the very start. Now, that original take, the original shots of the MEV scene, sadly have been lost to the mists of time. But there are a couple of still images that do exist from that original shoot, and they keep turning up from time to time. They turned up in the 1990s Captain Scarlet comics, as well as a commercial break bumper. The slide that would appear at the beginning and end of the commercials in the TVS repeats in the mid-80s. Yeah. And most notably as Sweet Cigarette Card number 5 in Barrett's Sweet Cigarette Card collection. Now, if you are in the Podsterons group on Facebook, you should be able to see an image of that original version posted in the group, and we will also try and incorporate it into the video of this Fab Fact on YouTube. So if you're listening and watching there, then hopefully you'll be seeing it right now.
But, I mean, they used that image mistakenly, I'm assuming. They had no idea that it was from a...
Oh, of course, because, most licensees and stuff are going to look through and be like, yeah, that's a good picture. They're not going to examine it and go, does this match with what we see in the episode? I don't think it does. No, lots of mistakes are made like that. In fact, you may have noticed, Richard James, on another note of mistaken identity, that a French Stingray DVD set has recently been released.
Okay.
Which features on the front, not Stingray, but a Stingray Universe submarine designed by Chris Thompson, which appears on our website.
Right.
As a fictional article about the potential vessels that predated Stingray, which they've nabbed off of Google Images and used on the front of the box.
Oops.
So these mistakes do happen occasionally, rather embarrassingly, but I think using the original take of the MEV scenes is less embarrassing than using the wrong vehicle entirely. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, did that happen at all in Space Precinct? Do you remember any specific kind of reshoots? Not where, this Creon looks far too much like Hubble Orin, and we can't have that. We'll have to do a resculpt and a reshoot.
I don't remember anything that specific. Of course, we had to retake stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, famously, it was the episode Illegal, where Haldane had to short-circuit a fuse box, and he used a metal item which was deemed to be inappropriate and might encourage children at home to do it, so they had to reshoot that very small scene a few weeks later, and you could tell because Haldane's hair is slicked back because it was rather longer than during the original shoot. So things like that happened regularly, but I can't think of an instance where a junked scene has provided an image which has then been released for all to see.
That is quite niche and specific. However, listeners might, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there are people out there who know better.
So if you have spotted anything like that or have any other similar stories to the one we've just told, then email us podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Yeah, I mean, pretty soon there'll be images of the original podcast co-hosts, won't there? Accidentally, popping up on
Trevor
Google
Simon,
Images.
I believe.
That's right.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, the lost season.
There you go, the
Yeah.
lost season of the Gerry Anderson podcast. Well, let's not delve too deeply into that because I think this actually brings us quite neatly to the end of this week's Junked Fact.
Well,
Lovely.
that's quite tricky to say, wasn't it? Junk fact. There's lots of stuff going on there. Anyway,
We did well, though.
enough
We
of
did
that
well.
nonsense. We did. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Leave us a nice review and share us with your friends so they can hear us too. It's that easy. Get in touch with us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. You can go over onto Twitter and hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast. You can tag him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James, and we'll see your tweets. Like, for example, I have just a few here. Megan. Megan says, hey guys, I thought you'd be interested in this. And she posted a little clip on her Twitter profile. Mention is made about 2 minutes in of Space 1999 by the special effects team from ILM that gave the world Star Wars. And yes, indeed, there's a very brief clip there from the making of Star Wars. And yes, ILM do in fact name check Space 1999 a couple of minutes in. How's
Quite
that?
right too. Well, we know, don't we? Because George Lucas himself went to Bray to meet Brian Johnson to see what he was doing and work out the best way they could do stuff. So without Space 1999, I think it's fair to say there would be no Star Wars at all.
You think that's fair to say? Okay. All right, well, we'll leave that there.
I'm calling it fair.
Martin Quibell, I think, said, now listening to the podcast, and I've just found out in the show that a surprise voice in a segment was the lovely Nana Visitor from Deep Space Nine. Well, he must be talking about the Randomiser. Did you spot Nana Visitor? Amazing. And also John McDonald said, part of the Super Marination canon that was never shown in my TV region. He's just bought himself a classic retro box set of Joe 90. Interest was reignited due to the Fab Gerry Anderson podcast. Excellent production values and detail, and always brilliant theme tunes, and a young lad doing super spy stuff. Really good fun, says John McDonald.
See, I thought for a minute there he was saying, really great production values and really interesting and stuff about the podcast, but then he was talking about Joe 90.
No, I'm pretty sure he was talking about
there.
Joe 90, yeah. Anyway, you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Just hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast. Tag me, Richard N. James, him. I'm Jamie Anderson.
Please do. I would love to be tagged. And also tag Chris Dale at Chris Dalek.
I've done it again.
Yeah, I know. We've got to do this now. Come on.
Yes.
Come on. Because
I know.
Chris is a very active Twitterer.
He really is.
And very interactive and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I've been a bit
funny
lax
stuff
on
as well.
Twitter recently. So, yes, chat to Chris there and thank him for his wonderful efforts across the Randomiser and things like the Pod 100 Genesis of Thunderbirds story, which if you haven't heard yet, you must go back and listen. Not now, but at the end of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So to help us towards the end of this podcast, we should do another section. And the next section we normally do right now is Gerry Anderson News. So should we do Gerry Anderson News?
Oh, yes.
Here's the Gerry Anderson News.
News. Yeah, you can't just say news, can you?
Well,
I
can.
News.
Seems like you can't, though, Richard. It seems like you you have to be the one that has the last word.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry.
And that's been proved this week, as many of you will have seen on the YouTube channel. 0X Planet of Bones Part 1 has been released for free on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel. Now, Richard, there are some rather famous names involved with this from around the Gerry Anderson universe. I believe Wayne Forrester plays Captain Paul Travers.
Yeah.
Robbie Stevens plays Ray Pierce and Dr. Leon Vadsky.
That's right.
And then there's some other bloke,
Mike Noble, who did the original
Mike Noble's original artwork. Chris Thompson, who's done the amazing artwork. There's Jack Knoll and Andrew Clements doing some supporting voices in there.
Some big names,
and I believe, interestingly, in a sort of case of meta-nominative determinism,
right,
the man with two first names has ended up playing another man with two first names.
Yes, you're right. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, Richard James, our very own Richard James, plays Greg Martin.
That's right.
So, congratulations, Richard, and a lovely job you've done too.
Well, haven't we all?
Chris and I were chatting yesterday and just saying how kind of 60s style and evocative it was. So
yeah, I was trying to channel my inner William Shatner.
I think you really got there. Noticed. Nice Shatnering. So yes, that is the first part of 3 of the Planet of Bones story. You will be able to see more each Saturday for the next 2 Saturdays. If you haven't checked it out, go back to the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gerry Anderson TV, and have a watch there. I hope you enjoy it. Do let us know if you did or even didn't. Podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk, or just leave some comments or feedback on the YouTube channel. I think it might be available on Facebook as well. And we're hoping to be able to bring more Gerry Anderson spin-off material and comics and stuff to life in this way over the coming months. And there's also lots more stuff going on behind the scenes. As you and I were talking about just before this podcast, Richard, it is bit nuts.
Yeah, because you weren't busy enough, were you, Jamie? Let's face it.
No, none of us are, but we can always be a bit busier, eh? Anyway, so yes, Zero X, congratulations to the whole team on that. You know, that's been very much at arm's length for me, and everybody just taking it and running with it and doing a fantastic job. So well done, team. And we hope you've enjoyed it, Podsterons and Zero X viewers. Now, obviously, we know that Zero X connects the Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds universes and is the only thing really to do so.
It does.
That's a neat segue, you see, into the world of Thunderbirds. Now, for years, people have been saying, I want the Thunderbirds soundtrack, I want some Barry Gray Thunderbirds stuff, when's it coming out? Well, I've got an answer for you. It's mid-July this year. Oh, and in fact, you can pre-order the soundtrack on CD or limited edition vinyl right now. Now, at the time of recording, I can tell you that the limited edition vinyl version of this soundtrack, which is on sky blue vinyl and a lovely gatefold sleeve, is selling out fast. It is limited to a first pressing of 750 units worldwide, and I suspect by the time this is out, 2/3 of those may have gone. It is flying out the door like Thunderbird 1 out of a swimming pool. So make sure you go and grab those. A great opportunity to have 37, I believe, amazing tracks of Barry Gray Thunderbird stuff. It's going to be lovely. I can't wait to get my copy. So go and grab those. Strangely, do you remember, Richard, some time ago we had some rather lovely Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet inspired clothing ranges on the store? Designed by Chris Thompson, the lovely kind of bold number designs on the chest. Yes. Well, they've been gone for some time, but we keep getting people requesting them. So by popular demand, they are back.
Oh,
yes, lovely. The Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet inspired ranges are back, not just as t-shirts, but also as phone covers.
I like it.
They look pretty smart, actually, as a phone cover. So there you go. Go and have a look at those on the Gerry Anderson store. Now I have an apology to make.
Again?
I know, I'm always apologising for things, but
week.
That's because I'm always messing things up, to be honest, because there's too many plates to spin, and this one, it hasn't dropped and smashed, it's dropped and been caught by somebody very helpful, and I'll get it spinning again shortly. We got loads and loads and loads of entries for our Tracy Island Make competition, loads more than I thought we'd get. So there's a lot to go through, and so the judging on that is slightly delayed. If you sent it in, it has been received, and it is sitting in a collated file waiting for us to review and agree on. So apologies for the delay. There will be news on that soon. But some amazing entries, some really, really creative ones. Couple of strange ones too. We had one that was made out of fabrics only, you know, cushions and blankets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was quite interesting. And I think I mentioned the pop-up book version.
Yeah,
some
lovely.
Really lovely sort of texture and paintwork on the rocks of Tracy Island from a few. Just, a lovely collection. So thank you to everybody who's entered, and we will have news on that very soon. And finally, for now, I'm just letting you know that coming up in the next few weeks, as well as Zero X on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, we will also be putting out some more full, free episodes of New Captain Scarlet, Terrorhawks and Space Precinct, all on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gerry Anderson TV, because we want to keep you entertained.
Crumbs.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, and also, Richard, I'm going to put you on the spot now, because you just said you'd do it before this. I believe that Richard Neinstein James is recording an audiobook version of his best-selling, Booker Prize-winning tome.
We're going to have a disclaimer after this.
Yes, asterisk, may not be either of these. Space Precinct Unmasked. So you will be able to hear the backstory of Space Precinct, all the gossip from behind the scenes, all the little stories, things you might not have known about from the horse's mouth. And you're that horse, obviously, Richard, in case anybody wasn't clear.
Thanks.
So we can look forward to that.
I better do it now then.
Yeah, I mean, once this is finished, you'll have to go and do it straight away. So that'll be out in the next few months. So sit tight and look forward to an audio version of Space Precinct Unmasked. And now that, I think, unless you've got anything else...
I have nothing else.
Brings us to the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. 0x News.
Nice.
Yeah, just one thing out of many. Obviously, that I could have picked.
James, you're going to be like, I don't know if you know this, but I actually starred in the motion comic version of Gerry Anderson 0x.
That's right. Yes, exactly. There we are. Something else to brag about.
I cannot wait to hear you not bragging about that.
Now, we have had a couple of emails this week to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. For example, Rob Pollard, who we mentioned last week, I think, says, "Hi, Jamie and Richard. Thanks for my mention on Pod 104. The wobbles seem to have subsided at the moment as I've been busying myself with various Anderson-related stuff to keep the wobbles at bay, including further dinky Thunderbird 2 restoration projects. See attached photos." And he sent us some lovely pictures of his work. Great podcast as always. Loved the interview, and I would love a job like David Tremont has, but we'll have to put up with being a postie. Lol. Well, that's all right, Rob. Thank you very much for being a postie. Keep up the good work, he says. And a big shout out to all the Podsterons in the UK and across the globe. FAB, Rob. P.S. Hope you like the pics of work in progress. Yes, we certainly did.
Indeed,
we love to see, the pictures that you send in. Of course, it being a podcast, we can't show it. But we sometimes, if they're not up already, put them up on the Podsterons Facebook group. And who knows, when we do another Fab Live, we might well show them there. Also, Alan Porter got in touch to say, "Hi, gentlemen. Apologies," he says, "that I'm a little behind in my podcast listening and only just listened to Pod 99 during my walk this morning." Oh, well, that's fair enough. Not too far to go.
That's pretty close now.
Yeah, I was delighted to hear the Fab Facts section on the Star Trek comic strips that appeared in Joe 90's Top Secret. The British Trek strips are something of an area of specialty for me. I covered them pretty extensively in my book on the history of Trek comics that I wrote back in 2009. And I contributed a detailed essay on the Brit Trek to the New Lives and New Civilizations anthology. At the time I wrote the book, the strips had never been reprinted because of various rights issues, but thankfully those have been untangled, and in recent years the strips have been made available in 3-volume archival book set from IDW Publishing in the US, and I believe there are plans for them to be included in the Eagle Moss Publications' ongoing set of Star Trek comics collection in the UK at some point. They're well worth looking out for, as they're great fun, and as you pointed out, add a very post-war British sensibility to Star Trek. Where else would you find Spock and Kirk dogfighting in Spitfires? That's nice. By the way, he says, finally, it wasn't just the British comics writers and artists who had to work with no knowledge of the show. The same is true of the first few issues of the US comic books, which license holder Gold Key Comic farmed out to artists in Italy who also had never seen the show. Amazing. With some equally bizarre results. Thanks again for all the hard work and for supplying my regular Anderson fix. And that's from Alan Porter. Well, thanks, Alan. That's great, isn't it? Imagine working blind on something that's going to one day become, world dominant TV show. And there you are, right at the very beginning, with no clue what you're doing.
Exactly, basically just a title, maybe a character list that's been dictated to somebody over the phone and misheard. Hence Captain Kurt.
Yes, that's right.
In TV21. Yeah, brilliant, Alan. I love that. The fact that we can talk about something on the podcast and thankfully, somewhere, an expert is listening and is able to fill us in all the details. That is brilliant.
It saves the day for us. Yeah, exactly. So yes, do get in touch, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I'm sure you know the email address by now. Send them in. We'll read them out. It's that easy.
Oh, yes. I look forward to more emails in due course. Now, Richard, I think it's time for a bit more interview, don't you?
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, because a few weeks ago I spoke to the rather marvellous David Tremont, very talented model maker, known worldwide, one of the best in the business, I might say. Many might say. He wouldn't say because he's too modest, but many would. So this is the final part of our 3-part interview, kind of taking us into the most current phase of David's work and life, reflecting on all things Anderson, and just rounding off a jolly nice chat. So here is part 3 with David Tremont. Okay, so a great culmination of kind of career moments and inspiration from Thunderbirds and Doctor Who and stuff, and you're now, well, until isolation from COVID, you were making stuff daily. I know you're also sharing your knowledge through a series of books David. Is that right? Can you tell me about that? Because I was discussing this exact thing with the dear late Richard Gregory a couple of years ago, which was the fact that as we make the move to digital, although we're not leaving behind the physical stuff, the number of people who have those skills to create something physical from nothing, to kit bash, to sculpt, to use all those techniques, that is being lost a little bit. It certainly feels like that used to be the bulk of the industry, and now it is kind of getting towards a minority. So we were talking about ways to share that knowledge and stuff, and that is something that you are doing. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. It is a very serious concern that the ability to make stuff and understand it is being lost. Handmade is disappearing from our psyche. People just think everything can be printed and done on a computer, and they don't even need to think about it. Speaking of which, a lot of the digital artists are also suffering because they don't understand how the real world works. And it's reflected in what they produce digitally. It doesn't resemble reality. The best digital artists are the ones that have worked in the physical world for years, and they make the transition to the dark side and become extremely good at their craft because they understand what is real and what isn't. But yeah, the ability to make stuff, and I absolutely believe that understanding how to make something with your hands, solving problems with your hands, thinking outside the box is going to help you no matter what you do, whether you're a model maker, a painter, musician, scientist, space engineer, anything, a creator, a writer, anything. If you can understand and think outside the box, it makes you more creative in whatever you do. And I just love the idea of being able to pass on my little bit, try and inspire young people, anybody really, but young people to make stuff. Just be creative. Just figure out how to see things differently and create characters, write stories. So, yes, I've started producing a series of books just showing basic model making, telling stories. I'm not sure how else to describe it. And all loosely tied together with a bunch of dumb jokes. But the books could be described as a hardcover dumb joke with some models in it. Yeah,
perfect.
But
and what are the books called, and where can people get them?
They're called. I've created characters which are a bunch of robots, and they're at war with each other. And it's just a great way to a great excuse to build a bunch of models and characters and tell stories, and you can do a lot of really silly stuff with it. So the books are called Build Stuff and Let Slip the Androids of War. There's a series of 4 of them. At this point, because I simply don't have time to stick them in envelopes myself, so Weta have pretty much exclusively got them at this point, and they can be ordered directly through Weta. Yeah, unless I can find other people that want to take the darn things on. But yes, they can be found at Weta. Yeah, 4 volumes, and I kind of got hooked on doing it. I love the process of telling stories, inventing worlds, inventing characters. So I'm working on a new series of books, which is going to be, it takes a long time to build everything. So it'll be possibly more than a year to 2 years away before I get that one done. But yeah, these books aren't supposed to be slick, professional looking. They're just clunky, clumsy. All mistakes are in them. It's okay to make mistakes. You can make something and stop fearing that it has to be perfect first up. No, it doesn't. You've got to make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes and do the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one and so forth. So it was fun for me because I didn't have to be high-end professional with those books. I could just clunk them together, literally. And one particular sequence in one little story I was telling, I didn't light the set properly and I underexposed each shot. And I didn't bother checking the images because I wanted to get the whole thing shot in that day. my time was a bit restricted.
Yeah.
So I foolishly didn't check the shots. I thought, oh, no, they look all right on the camera. They'll be good. Pulled the set apart and went into the next set. End of the day, that night, when I started downloading the images, all as dark as hell, couldn't see any detail. I couldn't go back and redo it. Also, I just wrote it in. The guy in charge said, when's someone going to get the lighting in here fixed? Just go with it. Just make mistakes. just run with it.
It is part of the creative process, though. You're right, is just making something, just creating something, just doing something, get it wrong, iterate, do it again. And when you do the next thing, you'll have learned from making those mistakes, and maybe you'll make them again to some degree, or maybe you'll have learned and avoid it and create a whole new set of mistakes. But that's part of
the process.
Creating anything, isn't it?
Making mistakes inhibits people. People are so afraid of making mistakes that it holds them back. So you just do it. Just go for it. There's a great expression. I don't know where it originated from. You throw yourself at failure and miss.
That is a great phrase. I hadn't heard that either.
So, and that's kind of, Richard
Awesome.
says that a lot. You throw yourself at failure and miss, and that's kind of what they did with Weta. They had no idea where they were going with all of this stuff and whether it all could be achieved, and they just went for it. Yeah, a bunch of young guys, young New Zealanders that had no idea it could go wrong. Never even occurred to them, and just went for it.
Yeah, it's part of what you've got to do. Now, David, before we wrap this up, we should touch on modern projects that involve you and the worlds of Gerry Anderson. Obviously, Thunderbirds 1965, you were a key part of that. I guess you and Richard Gregory in particular were, two of the guys creating so much of the physical stuff we saw. One thing in particular that I just wanted to mention was watching you build the mansion that was eventually destroyed in an epic pyrotechnic scene. So I remember watching you spend a long time finessing this beautiful facade of the mansion and lots of breakaway sections behind. And then the day came where it was rigged to explode. Everyone was sent outside except for a couple of you. Certainly you. I'm pretty sure you were in there hiding behind a giant polystyrene block, I think.
Sorry, I was going to say I was. I wanted to film it with my camera, so I was hiding as best I could behind a light stand.
Really great protection.
I had a visor and earmuffs and stuff on. So yeah, no, I've been very close to a lot of pyros in my time. I've been frontline fireman in some thingos where literally while our flames are still in the air, I have to race in and start putting out the fires on miniature pyros. All good fun. But anyway, carry on about the mansion.
Yeah, well, I was outside. The charge went off, and it almost felt like the windows at the front of the building bowed out slightly because it was a colossal bang. There's that lovely moment after that bang when you go back and you watch the playback just quickly, just on the little monitor or whatever, and you see your work being destroyed in the most beautiful, random way. Obviously it's not random because the way you built it, it's going to be destroyed in a certain way, but there's that surprise element, the unknown of how real world physics are going to affect this destruction. For me, that's a very exciting thing, but I'm not the one that's built the bloody thing and spent, weeks doing it. Just tell me about the process of making something like that, with that as a particular example, and how it feels for you watching your work blown to smithereens and watching the playback.
It's funny. This is a conversation I have often. People are always shocked when I show them pictures of some of the massive models. That's actually quite a small one, that model, compared to some of the things I've built and the effort that has to go into them to be blown up. I get asked this a lot. Oh, aren't you upset that your model's been blown up? No, quite the opposite. Building a model for display is very different from building a model that has to be blown up. It's a very different animal. You can't do a pyro on a display model. It just won't come apart. So from the start, it's built for a specific purpose, and that is the effect of it being destroyed. And that's part of the excitement of doing it, the challenge of putting that together brick at a time so it all flies apart like the real thing. So no, for me, I want it to succeed. I want to press the friggin' button, but they wouldn't let me. No, so from the start, I knew this was going to be a pyro model, so I had to get my head into how this is going to explode. I need to talk to the director. So you've got to talk to the director what he wants to see. The camera people, how's it going to fit into your shot? What's the shot going to be? I need to talk to the pyro guys. What are you going to use to blow this thing up? What sort of force has it got? And do we want flames or smoke or sparks? And so all those sorts of little things have to come into thinking about how this model's got to go together. Normally on a big budget, traditionally you'd build 3. You do all your tests on the first one, you shoot it, and if it works, great, you're good to go. If not, you can use the second one and shoot it, and if something goes wrong, you've got the third one as a backup. A lot of shows, though, can only afford 1. That is it. If it fails, that's it. You're done. So a lot was riding on this thing actually working properly. But I knew from the start it had to be blown up, and I was very much looking forward to this. So it was built, out of balsa wood is not an ideal wood because it's a hard wood. It doesn't come apart when you put a pyro behind it. So you've got to pre-break it. It's got to be in lots of little tiny sections. So this whole model is built very fragile out of balsa wood in lots of little sections. We only ever see the front of it, so I don't need to build the back, which was good because we can then, gives access for the pyros to be fitted into it. So it was, a whole bunch. I can't remember how many weeks, but I was working on that thing for quite a few weeks, putting it together.
Certainly 3, maybe more. It was a long process.
Long process. All very exciting stuff. I was so looking forward to this actually working. So we did a lot of tests with the guys doing the pyros, trying to get a look that everyone was happy with. I wanted to be convinced that they had the right kind of force that would punch it apart. Sometimes pyro technicians, they put too much in and the model disappears in between frames. It's gone into dust instantly. Just too much. You've got to slow the explosion down, even shooting at high speed, because it's a miniature, it's small, unless you're going to afford to build it as a real structure and blow it up. But we're building a miniature. Even shooting high speed, you've got to scale the power of the explosions down, even though, what you felt and the noise, it didn't seem that way, but it was scaled down. It was slower. So, on the day we spent ages. Everyone stands back and let the pyros guys go in and do their stuff. So they're not interrupted. They know they got the wiring right. They got all the charges right. It's all safe. Everything's secure. Nothing can go wrong. Then once they're done, nothing. Now I've worked on miniature pyros where the guys have just not really been on top of their game and they've crossed wires and screwed things up. And I was actually on one pyro shoot. Yeah. The guy was wiring up my miniature with a lit cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And so, oh my God, everyone sort of stood a long way back. It's like, this is a bit dodgy. Anyway, back to reality. Once they're finished, I've got to go in and I've got to then fill up all the gaps with debris, because if you just blow up a wall, there's nothing there. It's all just fragments and there's no volume, and it's not exciting. So I have to go in and it's a little bit nerve-wracking. You've got these explosives at the end of my nose while I'm trying to stuff all bits of debris into every gap I could find, and little trays on top of the explosives, because as the charge goes off, we wanted a pile of rubble to go that away and then a pile of rubble to go that away. It's exactly the stuff Derek Meddings would have done when he was designing explosions. So things go to the camera and go in all directions. And you've also got to make up for
the favourite moment, David, where you get a little bit of debris spinning directly towards camera and then it just misses, or even strikes the lens. Doesn't really matter. But at the
metallic clang as it hits the ground right in front of the camera, or it does hit the lens. So and because the building has no back to it, you've got to make sure that it looks like it's got all of that volume and all the interior stuff. And there's a lot of lot of material inside a building. So you got to kind of replicate that, but you got to overdo it because so much of it's instantly lost. So you got to make sure there's enough stuff there to look like it's got something. And of course that tells a story and it's exciting and it's Hollywood sort of stuff. You expect it to be over the top. So once I'm all done, then final checks, all the conversations about the sequences and what's going to happen, and anybody that's not supposed to be there needs to be at a safe distance, i.e. out the front of the building watching the windows buckle. And the rest of us staying inside with our fingers in our ears. No, not quite that. We're all under protective gear. And then, everyone's happy that they know what's going to happen and the sequences and what actions are going to be given. For if you got more than one action to give and whatever. But a lot of it now is all controlled electronically. So pyro guys just press one button and the electronic sequence explosions very rapidly, one after another. Yeah, you hear the cameras wind up to speed and cameraman screams out, speed!
Yeah.
And then director, action! Bang! Yeah, and it's over in a nanosecond with one colossal window buckling explosion.
Yeah. But it's that ratio of what 3 or 4 weeks of man time to create this and a tenth of a second for it to be wiped out.
Oh, it took more than a tenth of a second. Some of the bits of debris were still landing a few seconds afterwards.
Yeah, but the essential, that moment of explosion, that from going from perfect complete model to destroyed
rubble. Yeah, it just took a fraction
amazing.
Of a second. And that part, that is the excitement. That's that's what we've all worked for and achieved. If that failed, if something went wrong and those pyros only half worked or whatever, and the shot was no good, that would be disappointing. That would be a colossal disappointment. Just a bit. And I have worked on shows that has happened. And it's it's really is hard, disappointing when you lose the entire shot because of that. But this one worked.
Yeah, but then you've got that wait, that short wait though from end of destruction. Okay, cut. Get the fire extinguisher out if necessary, and then it's the build up to the playback. I mean, that for me, that is the kind of crazy exciting bit after the initial rush of the explosion. Is it the same for you, or are you just looking at it thinking, yes, it's disintegrated as expected, I'm done, and then you wander off and have a pee or whatever?
No, you're watching the playback, seeing it all as the audience is finally going to see it when it's it's all been shot at high speed, getting to see it slowed right down, and you see that it really looks great, it's worked, and then the next one after that is when the sound effects are put onto it. But back long before being able to record things digitally, we couldn't do that. Yeah, the model explode to be gone in a nanosecond. That film, the cameraman will open the camera up and pull the roll of film out, and it all goes into a bag, goes off to the processing lab, comes back the next day. Then that's put into a projector. Then we can get to see it then and know whether it's worked or not. But now we can watch it instantly. But back then we were all sort of wondering whether it has worked or not, and had to wait another day before we can see the results. But we're seeing, that all of those weeks of work looked brilliant. All very happy, and I show that bit of footage off over and over again. It's good fun.
Quite right too. Yeah. It is lovely. So just reflecting briefly on that experience, I mean, dream come true in terms of being able to recreate exactly what you'd been seeing when you were a kid, the thing that really started it all off.
Absolutely. As I said right at the start, the full circle. Yeah, seeing these things as a kid, and that's all I wanted to do, and then getting to actually do it, actually work on it, and create stuff in the same, what's the right word, same vein as Thunderbirds, making it look the same. It was a brilliant experience. Absolutely, just couldn't believe I was there doing it.
And even in that building, which I think we worked out was the building where they did the special effects sequences with the Zero X for Thunderbirds Argo.
Not absolutely convinced on that. Looking at some of those images, some of the walls didn't quite look right, but possibly the other thought was it may have just been used for storage.
Okay, but with either a building that was actually used or within, yards of where it was originally
part of it. It was definitely used in either way. Whether they're shooting stuff in it or storage later on, don't really know for sure. But we do like to think that they were actually shooting stuff like Zero X in there. Pretty convinced they were.
Yeah.
But being on that same street in those same buildings, that was when I got picked up at the airport. Stephen and Drew picked me up, and driving down that road, it's like, oh my God, I'm here.
I'm home.
Yeah. Yes.
Lovely. A real labour of love. So really impressive
I was,
stuff.
just definitely lost for words at that point. I was just floating. It was brilliant.
Now, you also made some time during that period and afterwards, once you got back, to do some stuff for us for the Firestorm pilot minisode as well, which was awesome. You cannibalized a model that you'd made previously, a hovercraft model.
That was
which is just up here, which is just out of shot for you. You can't see it, but it is there.
Yeah, that was a model built for a TV commercial back in the 90s. So it was one of the things that I'd kept over the years, and I thought it was perfect. Hey, there it is. Holy crap, there it is.
There you go. Just showing David where it is. It's there, sat amongst a UFO Interceptor, Thunderbird 1 and Thunderbird 3.
Thunderbird 2.
So.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
so that kind of got resurrected. The model's getting on a bit and cracking and falling apart, so I'm glad it actually survived. But, a bit of a quick throw together. I'm trying to get something done for you so you can get the test.
Worked beautifully, though. It's part of the magic, though, isn't it? Like you said, that's putting into play all the skills that you picked up from before, where people were like, right, we need this model done quick. We need something turnaround. We need something adapted super quick. You had that skill set to bring to it. And it's a lovely looking model, which is why I've got it on display in the office. But then you went back home and you built some
Sentry drones, which was kind of fun. I hope you're all happy with those things, because I just made up something from just what I had in boxes, just an odd-looking shaped thing with rotating Gatling gun-type barrels. Did you get to keep any of those?
So they are up there on my little mezzanine thing. And in fact, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to make some little videos showing them off and talking about them and how we use them in the shoot itself. So yeah, no, they were lovely. It was great. It's again one of those lovely things. Somebody working remotely, they send something over, and you open the box and have a look at them for the first moment, and also for those connecting up the battery and turning on the spinning barrels that you did.
Oh, good. I'm glad you said
it was awesome.
That sort of thing is really difficult for him, because I really struggle to I don't have the ability to not care about something, if I'm making sense. So I fret a lot that people aren't going to be happy with what I make them. And working remotely on the other side of the planet, not knowing exactly what's in your head.
Yeah, with a 12-hour delay.
Not knowing exactly what you're visualizing in your head, because I don't have that sit on the same table and go over ideas. Not knowing how you're going to film it, how you're going to mount it, what sort of things you'll need. So I just had to make it up and hope for the best, and hope you actually like the damn things. So I'm glad that everyone was happy with them. I hope that kind of, when you it was what you were hoping for. So yeah, that does make it difficult when you're trying to do things remotely, and hoping that does actually work out when it gets to the other end.
Exactly. Well, even now, you and I are still doing some bits and pieces. A secret thing is happening right now, which you've been building for, which we can't go into any detail of. But it's, again, that remote work where you're doing something for real, physical stuff for real, which is looking really lovely.
Yes, trying to building it all in standard kit bash sort of stuff, where you build the most basic form is you build a box and stick things to it. So kind of keeping that kind of feel and format. But yeah, that's interesting, fun project that I'm really hoping to get to do more stuff with. at some point. Would be rather.
Fingers crossed. If it wasn't for lockdown, we would already be doing something with it right at this moment. But once we're out of this, it'll be good.
Firestorm is something that I just keep on hoping for. Oh, yeah, on my Facebook page, ages ago, I put up a little post saying how happy I was to work on this, and a few people got interested in it, and it kind of faded into the background. But I can't remember what happened, but I've been getting lots of friends requests for Facebook. I'm like a dozen a day. It's been going for months. It's gone crazy. But a few people have found that Firestorm post, and it suddenly got resurrected again. And there's a lot of people asking questions about it, saying, "Oh,
really?
Wow, this is amazing!" and singing for the first time, and really loving it. And I thought this was going ahead, and it is. It's going to happen. Blah blah blah. So it's a bit of renewed interest out there, looking at the stuff.
Yeah, we keep seeing that, which is really nice. And as you know, with these things, it's stuff goes in fits and starts, and then you have to wait for ages, and then maybe something changes or something falls over or something gets added. So it's just such a long process. I wish we could have magic wands and just make it all go. But there we go.
I keep trying to win the lottery, but unfortunately, I'm not buying any lottery tickets, and I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. Probably does.
It might possibly influence it. And David, I must let you go, and we must wrap this up. So if people want to follow you or find out more about what you do, are they able to do that on social media? Is there anywhere they can do that? Oh, he's just pulled out a shadow mobile. That is lovely. I'll tell you what, can you take some snaps of you with some of these models so we can share them with the Facebook group, the Podsterons Facebook group?
I've got a vehicle I built from Joe 90, one of the explosive trucks.
Well, not so interested in that.
Oh, but they used it in other shows as well.
That's fine. What a lovely model that is. Yeah, so if people want to follow you and keep up with what you do, and know more about the books and that kind of thing, can they find you on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram? Where can they stalk you?
I'm on Facebook.
Yes, I found you here. If you look up David Tremont, then you appear. And there's a picture of you, in fact, with the Cyclone, unpainted Cyclone Speeder from Firestorm hanging up behind you.
In its original format. But I've also got another Facebook page which deals with my Robots of War books. And that's... Have you got that one as well?
I have not found that one yet.
Droids of War. It has a picture of Volume 4 on it. And then lots of pictures of my models. Yeah, at Droids of War.
Yeah, okay, so there you go. So just search David Tremont on Facebook, or go to facebook.com/Droids of War and Instagram.com/DH Tremont. There you go. Podsterons, go and follow David and stalk him and look at his stuff. I'm looking now, lovely pictures of stuff in progress, finished models, all sorts of stuff. So, go do that now. David, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. You're a star, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again in the future to talk about other things Anderson. But for now,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
This has been fun. I've really enjoyed it. Say hello to that other chap.
No, I won't bother with that. David, thank you. I think, as he mentioned there at the end, you can follow him on Facebook and Instagram. Just go and search him out and let him know if you enjoyed his interview. I'm sure you did. I mean, surely, if you're still listening now, you've listened all the way through it, so you must have enjoyed it.
True enough.
Do let him know. Again, because, as we've said before, Dickie, lots of people say, I've got nothing interesting to say. People don't want to hear from me. And that is not the case. It fascinates me to hear about how these people have kind of had Anderson influences through their lives, where they started, where they are now, and even kind of non-Anderson stuff. So, it's always interesting.
And as Rob Pollard said in his earlier email, he would love to have a job like David Tremont. I mean, wouldn't we all? Yeah. And actually, by these interviews, we kind of live that job a little bit, sort of vicariously, don't we, for a little while, as we imagine ourselves doing what they do. It's rather nice.
Exactly. So, yes, thank you, David. Thank you all of our interviewees. Next week, we have Morgan Jeffrey.
Oh, not Radio Times Morgan Jeffrey.
Yes, Radio Times' very own Morgan Jeffrey.
Great.
Morgan is a well-known journalist, writer. fan of all things science fiction and cult television. He has his own podcast, Two Geeks, Two Beers, which has been going for 5 years, and started with a Gerry Anderson episode of Terrorhawks. So yeah, Morgan will be here next week to chat his fascination with Anderson stuff, where it started, and also because he's got a really good kind of overall contextual view of modern entertainment, where he believes Anderson stuff sits and could sit in the future. So a really different take on all things Anderson, so we can look forward to that next week. And as I mentioned previously, we've got other interviewees coming up, including Trevor Simon and Jo Marie Verber, who wrote the Thunderbirds books of the late 2010s.
Oh, yes.
Nice. 2010s? No, 20 noughties? The noughties, late noughties. And early 2010s. Goodness me, it's very difficult to describe these things sometimes.
Bless.
Even though they're simple. So there you go. That's it. Richard, have you got any other things you would like to add in from around the Podsteron universe or elsewhere? Or just random things you want to say?
No, heaven forbid. Now, I know people are chomping at the bit to get to Chris Dale's Randomiser, of course, which is why they're really here, but I'm just going to ask you to hold your horses a moment, because we're going to head on over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons. They're having Saturday night quizzes there. Did you know that, Jamie?
I did. I saw an invite to one recently, but I'm afraid I won't be able to attend the current one that's coming up, or the one that's just gone. Sorry, folks.
Yeah.
Hope you had a good one.
Well, I might well join in at the Podsteron Arms. They're also publishing colouring books for little Podsterons and playing the usual gift games and nonsense, of course, usually headed up by Tom Hodden. But Mark Wilson posted there, after a pretty full-on, relentless 10 weeks at work recently, words can't describe how much I'm looking forward to my week off next week. Luckily, I've been able to stay on at work to help keep our region fed and watered. Well done, Mark. Although my wife is the real hero, keeping our kids safe and entertained pretty much on her own. She really is the definition of a super mum. Yeah, isn't that lovely? And he says, I'll have a few spare hours on hand, so I've got a few things I bought from the store that I haven't even got round to starting yet, including these little beauties. And he's posted some pictures of various Blu-rays from Thunderbirds to Joe 90 to Terrorhawks. And he says, I'm hoping to finally get stuck into them. So any recommendations on what I should start with? Now, there's a question. Where would you start?
Well, I mean, it depends whether you want to rip off the plaster and get the worst out the way and do Joe 90 first, or whether you want to...
Jamie.
You know, it's personal taste, that's all.
Yes, of course it is.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Joe 90's restoration by Network looks incredible. So,
yeah,
I mean, if you want to see it, something in all of its sort of heightened glory, then...
Yeah,
maybe visually that's one to start with, and you can see the kind of, you can even see the hairs of the thatched cottage roof and that sort of thing.
Do cottages have hairs?
Well, in Joe 90, Smack's cottage does. I think I'm pretty sure it's made out of kind of mohair or something similar, or horsehair. I can't remember. Anyway, yes,
okay,
go and watch those, and obviously you can enjoy whatever you want, even Joe 90. In fact, can I just drop in a little thing here?
Go on,
Chris Bowden, who you may remember from a few podcasts ago, he WhatsApped me yesterday.
Yeah.
And he said he's about to invest in the Joe 90 Blu-ray set. So obviously I sent him the facepalm emoji in response. He said, one day I'll convince you. I said, no chance. He said, it just needs enough beer. So he said, when all of this stuff is over, you, me, a crate of Stella and Colonel McLean, that's what we're going to do. So Chris has thrown down the gauntlet. He's going to try and intoxicate me into liking Joe 90. Let's see. And I've said we should probably film it, but he said for safety's sake, let's not.
Oh, please record it. Then we'll take out some choice moments and make a little thing. That would be fantastic.
All right, we'll see.
Lovely. So that's what it'll take. Ron Hembling said, hi all, Thunderbirds Virgil Tracy diorama, which is a 1:6 scale. Yes. I got the idea for the diorama from Thunderbird episode Cry Wolf, and he's also included the recipe here. Virgil is from the Big Chief Studios, but then he's made the base. It's high-density foam, as are the wooden beams, which I used a sharp pencil to make the wood grain effect. The floor and wall was done using watered-down spac filler.
Nice.
And sand, and the whole diorama was painted and weathered using Vallejo paints. Do have a look on our Facebook group. What a lovely diorama that is of Virgil there.
I spotted it on Instagram a couple of days ago. It's really lovely.
There you go.
Great work.
Yeah, so if you at home, Podsterons, have done something similar, take a picture, tweet it, put it on Instagram, or even better on our Facebook group so we can all have a gawp. And finally, Alex Patrick said, according to pretty much everywhere, the 0x Mev in the Mysterons was there to establish that Scarlet takes place in the same universe as Thunderbirds. If that's true, says Alex, where was Commander Norman in Winged Assassin? You know, the very next episode that takes place at London International Airport? Leave your suggestions below, he said, and people did. So if you have any thoughts on that, head on over to our Facebook group, /groups/Podsterons, and leave your ideas there.
Yeah, now, of course, that is a bit retconny, isn't it?
It is rather,
because,
yes.
Realistically, they just had a model. They were like, let's just use that because it's, that'll do. That's right. There was never, as far as I know, never an intention by the production team to link the universes, particularly because of the different puppets.
That's right.
But it did happen in the TV21 universe, I believe. There was, certainly interconnectedness there. But yeah, wouldn't it have been nice if they were actually... Well, they had an opportunity there that I guess just wasn't a la mode then.
No, that's right. But also, you've raised a point there about the puppets. That if they had... if it had been an interconnected universe and we had seen that somehow in an episode or a scene, that would have looked very odd, wouldn't it? You can get away with it in a comic strip, of course.
Yeah, they would have had to all have resculpts, or you have some explainer of the just variety of the human race, that some people have enormous heads and hands and others don't.
Yeah, Jamie.
I've got very average size hands, I'll have you know.
And there we are. So do head on over to our Facebook page and join in the fun. And who knows, I might read out your message next week.
I look forward to those. But not as much as our Podsterons look forward to the randomiser each week, Richard James.
I know.
See what I did there?
It's true. Yeah.
Anyway, well, Chris Dale is here with a randomiser, where he goes through week by week, just randomly through all the decades of Gerry Anderson stuff, and he watches an episode and gives his thoughts. And I think he's about to do that right now. Here he is.
Where's Dale? What the hell have you done with Dale?
Hey, all right, Conroy, all right. No need to fuss. I'm right here. Anyway, there's no point having a go at Marina. She can't tell you anything. Oh, hello, everyone. Well, no time for a full introduction today, as we are heading back over to Space 1999 for Guardian of Piri. So, welcome back to the first season of Space 1999. It doesn't feel like we've made too many visits to the first season so far, but anyway, we're back with
data.
Guardian of Piri today.
As to whether that planet can support life.
We're already looking at Planet Piri on the big screen in main mission.
Since we first became aware of the planet's existence, but it's still reported to be insufficient.
I don't understand how it can control a reconnaissance flight to that surface and at the same time not tell us whether that surface can sustain life.
Well, in neither case, Commander, would computer be so irrational as to guess.
And that's something I like in the first half of this episode, is the emphasis on Kano, who never got much attention in the show, and also of
in a low orbit for final descent.
His relationship with computer and computer in general.
Confirm final descent now, Pete.
Unfortunately, that doesn't last throughout the whole episode, but it's a nice
computer made a bad mistake.
Nice element of this building mystery here.
They're 2 hours ahead of schedule.
Well, I'm still not sure how they got to the planet ahead of schedule.
When will they ever learn?
It doesn't seem to make too much sense. Anyway, we're here on planet Piri, which is a lovely bit of design.
Hey, this one's a weirdy head.
Not so much on the model shots, at least these distant shots of the what I call the bubble forest of Piri.
They're too low and their G-forces are increasing rapidly.
They're doing just fine by computer.
Yeah, well, computer's got to be wrong.
Did you get that, Pete? On course and holding. Everything's fine.
And I can't tell if this is Michael Culver's real voice or if it's been dubbed by an American, or I suspect it's probably a mix of both.
Check it out manually, Pete.
Pete Irving,
G-forces are 7 above computer's estimate.
His eagle is swooping all over the Pirian skyline. And it is quite a nice creepy opening. We're not sure what's happened to these two, but yeah, just suddenly all contact gone.
All transmissions ceased.
Scanner. The blip just disappeared.
I kept on telling you computer had insufficient data. It cannot assess the planet unless you feed it the right information.
Look, I am not concerned.
I love Alan's anger at this. It feels so genuine.
I want to know why it filled up all the normal flying data. Time, distance, orbital velocity.
Tate is so good at anger.
G-factors. Kana, you can't have got this thing.
Righteous anger, in fact.
But computer does not make that kind of mistake.
What are you telling me I do?
Alan?
Look, it was 2 of my mates that died out there.
Kano's men are making a thorough check.
I also love the way Alan just assumes that they're dead, because, we've been here more than enough times by now for him to assume that if you lose contact with an eagle, probably dead.
Computer told them to. which is why I want you to fly manual all the way. Irving also ignored all advice for main mission. Now, I want you to obey any order Paul gives you, even if it sounds irrational.
Meanwhile, Paul is now jotting down ideas for things he can tell Alan to do. And Alan will have to do them. Oh, you can see there's even a shot of Paul there. He's thinking about it. Oh, dear. So we're an eagle down.
Chart together from some astro shots I took.
We've still got this new planet to explore.
More time with planet period than computer thought. See, the curve of our course is tightening. We're being drawn closer than we expected.
Well, that could be either good or bad. In other words, if that planet can sustain us, then it gives us more time to explore and make up our minds. But if it's affecting us badly, then the closer we get, the worse it'll be.
Oh, speaking of affecting us, Victor's not doing too well.
Sorry, I'll be all right.
According to his monitor, he's fine.
So things are going wrong with the computer. Although Victor's now in medical centre and he looks all right.
We're slowly decreasing. Our own hearts have made a natural adjustment. Victor's mechanical heart didn't.
You know what this means? We can't even rely on computer for normal internal services. Well, any after effects?
No. I'm all right. Just a few strange fantasies, that's all. You know, I have a very powerful instinct that Piri is going to be just the right place for us.
Well, it'll take a lot more than fantasy to convince me of that.
Uh-oh.
Dr. Russell, she's dead.
Yep, we don't even know who that was.
Supply stopped.
Doctor, how could you possibly allow this to happen?
I can't control everything. I am not a computer.
I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
You're asking me to keep my patients alive? I can't do everything, woman. My goodness. So that's one poor unknown woman there. Named Sarah Graham, I think. Yep, don't know who she was, but she's dead. That's
about the G-force.
That's probably the most just...
I've cut my approach.
I don't know, for a show that has so many horrible deaths in it, that one still stands out for just how matter of fact it is. Here's this woman, she's dead. Actually, our first sight of her is she's dead. Oh dear. Anyway, Alan's investigating and he has found...
They haven't crashed. They're all right. Just hanging there, motionless.
What do you mean?
Well, don't ask me how, Commander, but she's all in one piece, and that's good enough for me. I'm going to dock.
And here's something I never understood about the Eagles, and I think it sort of varies from story to story, depending on what they need to be able to do. But this boarding tube sticking out of the side of the Eagle, where has that come from?
Just keep her steady, Jono.
Jono, I don't know who you are, and you're not going to get any lines. But yeah, it also seemed that the Eagle corridors would vary in shape, and sometimes they were round and sometimes they were square like that one was. Anyway, Alan has boarded the... it was Irving and Davis, that's it, boarded their Eagle, but... Oh, there's nobody there.
Oh. Go ahead, Alan.
You did tell me to put terrapins down my trousers, didn't you?
There's no one here.
Sandra very slowly stands up at that.
Alan, get back here. Kano, I want to talk to you.
Now, as you know, I like to blame just one person for all the problems we have this week, and this week it's going to be you. If you take a seat there.
You can sit if you'd like.
Oh, he is doing this, okay.
Sarah Graham was hooked to a computerized monitor during what should have been a simple blood transfusion. She died. Her blood...
Not Sarah Graham. No, I don't know who that is, Commander.
The lack of oxygen. Because computer went haywire. What's fouling everything from comlock systems to important data, and we're in desperate trouble.
But we can find no fault.
Then maybe we're looking for the wrong things in the wrong way.
I also like the way this story unfolds. The way that computer is the first one to be influenced by Piri, and
planet.
The subtle ways that you get the impression that computer is not only networked to all the other systems in Alpha, including remote systems like the Eagles and the comlocks, but it's also connected to certain key Alphans. Obviously, Kano, we're about to find out something quite significant about him. But Victor, with his mechanical heart, was the first one to fall to the influence of what we're later going to meet on the surface of the planet.
I've asked David Kano to go through with this because of what's happening here on Alpha.
Here we go. This is our probably the biggest and only
few people to take part in an experimental program on
background info bits on Kano.
To implant a complex of fiber sensors in the cortex of his brain. The intention was to link the enormous memory and calculating ability of the computer with the unique thinking ability of the human brain.
Yeah, so one of our main characters has basically got a USB port in the back of their head. This has never been explained before and will never be explained again.
Kano will be able to determine exactly how it's being affected.
I swore I'd never go through this again.
Also, I noticed that Koenig's comlock there hasn't got any buttons. It's just got bits of black tape where buttons should be.
What you mean is I survived it once.
I don't know if that maybe is a stunt comlock, possibly.
Good luck, Kano.
In case your brain melts, do you know any other black guys who could run the computer? I know you're the second one. I can't honestly remember what happened to the first one. It's such a... I can't get over the fact that we have a character with a computer port in the back of his brain, and it in the whole rest of the series, it's never mentioned again, and it's never useful again. I don't know, it's just so strange. Is this direct interface with computer the only thing it could possibly be used for? I guess, if so, it's quite painful for him, probably why he doesn't mention it anymore. Well, the squiggly line on the monitor is going very squiggly. But his brain so far isn't leaking out of his ear, which is always a good thing. Oh, now he looks all happy. And there he was, gone. Kano is gone. Yep. Disappeared in a pink blow. A pink blow? Pink glow. Oh dear. Although a pink blow would be just as powerful a cliffhanger, I'm sure. I don't even know if I'm going to leave that in. Anyway, Victor's scampering around, very busy.
That's it. We're in orbit.
If we're in orbit, we're trapped.
All the time we need.
Victor, I don't understand your sudden optimism about that planet. I mean, so far we've lost 3 men, and that doesn't encourage me one bit.
We have no idea what happened to them. There's no rational explanation. It could happen to any one of us. Yet it didn't happen to you.
Well, I was on manual. Yes.
Also, I'm awesome.
Everything computer told you. Alan, we're going down.
Oh, that's it. The Koenig slap. I've always meant to one day do a supercut video of all the times that Koenig gives somebody a friendly slap. I'm not sure if that's something Martin Landau did in real life or if that's just something he did for the character, but it happens a lot. Anyway, there's an eagle landing. Koenig and Alan come to see what they can see, and interestingly,
you'll leave the ship and call you if anything.
and obviously a shot that was filmed for much later in the episode, as the eagle lands, you can see half a dozen cardboard eagles scattered about the place. Probably at the time it wouldn't have been noticeable, but now,
A place like home.
on Blu-ray, it's very noticeable. So Alan's waiting in the eagle. Koenig is going to have a wander around. This gorgeous Keith Wilson set, it's just surreal in the extreme. It shouldn't really work, all these bubbles and veins and the whites and pinks, but somehow everything just gels into a believable, weirdly believable alien world.
They're dead now. I get no readings at all.
Don't give up, John. Early days yet.
So Koenig's having a little scan with his well, it looks like a
Fascinating.
It looks like a sort of old-fashioned office dictaphone.
Call you if I see anything unusual.
I'm guessing it's a scanning device similar to the Star Trek tricorder, and I want to say that in the script, it's called something like an organotron. I don't really remember them making much use of this tool. There's that eagle that still hasn't crashed, just hanging in the sky. And there...
Pete!
It's Pete.
You all right? It's Koenig. Kano, it's Koenig. Kano, talk to me. Kano!
Computer is right. Piri is just perfect for all our needs.
There's nothing here, Kano. There's no life.
There is light.
Oh, so Koenig has found his 3 missing men, and now there's a sort of giant tree of Pirian balls in the middle of the to be honest, it's difficult to describe it if you're not familiar with the episode, because everything here is just so weird. And Keith Wilson did some amazing sets across all of the Anderson shows, but this one, it may not objectively be the absolute best, but it's one of the most memorable. It's just so unique. I don't remember ever seeing another Alien Planet set anything like as strange as this on any other sci-fi show. Anyway, here's a young lady stepping down the steps to meet Koenig here, who is played by future co-star Catherine Schell.
I am sent to calm your fears and bring you peace.
It's very strange to see her name come up just after the episode title as guest artist. But yep, here she is.
I have come like this in human form, so that you may understand my presence.
And I believe she wasn't the first choice for Maya in the second season, at least. She wasn't Anderson's first choice.
You look very human.
So I've always wondered to what extent her performance in this episode was a factor in her getting the Maya role. Certainly it would have to have been...
I am the servant of the Guardian.
Partly a factor, but I wonder if it was the whole
thing. Our universe. And we have brought you here to relieve you of your human pain.
Because her character in this episode is quite different to the one she would be playing in Season 2 as Maya.
Being human, you are wondering about its power. Come.
She is, not to spoil anything, she's a bit more robotic in this episode than she would later be in Season 2.
They built a world of machines to run the necessities of life, so that they could enjoy their pleasure. Then they created the Guardian to control the machine.
And yet, of course, she has this exotic sort of air to her that really fits in with this strange alien environment of Piri.
Not for human beings. We're born, grow old, and die. It's transient, imperfect. Life can't be maintained.
I also like that Koenig, his first instinct, despite seeing three of his men in almost a trance-like state, he's quite willing just to talk to this woman.
In her suspended time.
And it's only now that he begins to realise the threat, the danger.
My men. How did you get them here?
We reached out and offered them happiness, and they accepted. Time is stopping for them.
Life is stopping for them. This place is not for us. I'll make them understand.
That...
I'll slap Kano and I'll slap him again if I have to.
...to the dominion of the Guardian.
I'll see about that. I'm going to slap Kano until he cries like a little girl.
Kano, come with me. You're dying here.
You must accept, Commander.
I will not accept. Come with me, Kano.
You must conform.
Come with me.
The Guardian is making you perfect. It is the Prime Directive.
Oh, blue light. Blue light equals perfect. And Koenig's being drawn in like a moth to one of those bug zapper light thingies, but because he's just so damn hard, he can fight it off. And speaking of manly people...
You all right? Yeah.
Someone who hasn't been able to resist...
Yeah. I heard you.
Is good old Alan. He's seeming a bit lightheaded here.
Nice place, huh? Kind of peaceful.
It's no place for us, Alan.
Nice people?
And I've never been clear here to what extent the Guardian is influencing people to act against their will, or if this manic flying is just something Alan really wants to do and has finally been given the freedom to do. But he's now rolling and diving and swooping this eagle all over the place. Now Koenig's hauled him away from the controls, which means there's no one at the controls of this eagle. And this is a fairly reasonably brutal fight scene between, well, I was going to say between Koenig and Carter, but it's very often between Koenig and Carter's stunt doubles. Quite noticeable here. And what makes it more effective is it's such a small and enclosed set to be doing this on. Anyway, Alan's now down and out. Miraculously, the eagle hasn't crashed in all the time that it's been swooping around without a pilot. And Koenig's now heading back to Alpha with a cut to his face and a busted arm.
Come in, Alpha. This is an emergency.
Stay on this channel.
And I rather like...
Come in, Alpha.
that we don't see exactly what happened
I'm not receiving.
to make the rest of the Alphans suddenly fall under the dominion of the Guardian. I can understand why it happened to Alan, because he was on the planet, he was so close.
Approach.
But for the rest of them,
Come on!
Koenig just returns to Alpha and everyone is suddenly liberated of all their inhibitions and having this great big party. Because, of course, the only man on the base who's hard enough and tough enough and strong enough to resist is Koenig himself. Everyone else is dancing in the medical centre. Koenig is not landing in the same eagle that he left with. He's landing in a laboratory pod eagle. And everyone's having punch, dancing. It's quite fun to watch what the regulars are doing. I think Xenia Merton manages to be at the punch bowl and dancing on the far side of the room at the same time, the way this is edited. Yeah, there she was. So with no one to help him at the eagle, he just has to follow the sound of the colossal drunken roaring. I love that the first season of this show could squeeze so many people into one frame. There's like 25 people in that room. Anyway.
Relax, Commander, relax. You had a fall. You passed out at the party, that's all.
Dr. Russell, where is she?
She's attending a command conference now. Commander?
It's a nice little rare character moment for Dr. Matthias, pouring Koenig a drink and then just helping himself to it anyway. I like the idea that he's got a secret stash of booze somewhere in a medical centre. And this is one of my favourite outtakes. I should have said bloopers, really. Yeah, so everyone's loading, moving equipment around the corridors, ready to leave Alpha. And a woman walks past Koenig with what is obviously a metal film can that has been sprayed white, which she's wearing, it's got a strap on it. The strap breaks and it lands on the ground with that really heavy metal sound.
Good morning, Commander.
It's so loud that even Landau turns around as if to check that, the cameras are still rolling, that wasn't an on-set disaster or something.
All right then, we won't worry.
I love spotting. I love watching that moment.
Depends on how our lines turn out in practice, though.
And here we are at a command conference. There's Helena, Victor, Sandra, Paul, Tony Allen's security guard, and a guy in a yellow sleeve. Yeah, definitely a yellow sleeve. I'm not sure who he represents. I mean, obviously the service section, but Sandra's there too.
These are my reports. It's a lot of phony information.
Curiously, Alan isn't there at all.
It's attacked our computer. It's attacking your minds.
Listen. Wonderful.
He's probably still got his feet up in the
Of our
eagle.
journey.
Helen, listen to me, please. I've been down there. I've seen what it's done to Kano, Davis, and Irving. Cabbages.
And to think we almost went right by it.
I also like that in this episode, the second half of this, so many of the characters seem so much more happier than they would normally do.
He's scheduled for Medical Eagle number 10. He'll be adequately taken.
I mean, especially Barbara Bain, who gets a lot of criticism for her performance in the first season, but I think moments like this show, there's a warmer, softer character lurking under there, and maybe we could have done with seeing more of her more often.
Good to believe in, Commander.
Speaking of characters we should have seen more often, here is a superbly cool moment, to me at least, of Action Tanya. And Tanya was a character who sort of hovered between regular character and extra, depending on what the story needed, played by Suzanne Roquette.
Commander's instruction in direct conflict with orders of the Guardian.
So the commander's trying to shut down the computer. Computer won't let him, so he resorts to ripping bits out of it. And Tanya isn't going to have any of that. She's going to get in there. And he shoves her so hard against the wall. But yeah, there we go. That was one of my favourite little Tanya moments. Nothing spectacular in itself, but you've got to take these things where you can find them.
Now listen to me. The Guardian is taking over your minds. Go on, listen. Victor, listen to me.
John, it's all right.
And this kind of thing isn't an uncommon trope in sci-fi shows where the whole crew has been taken over by this thing that's making them feel so happy and everything's wonderful, except for one man. The brave, fearless, heroic commander who is just so, self-reliant and tough and he's his own man, and he's not going to be brainwashed like the rest of them. He's going to save the day, and it's nice enough, but it does get a bit predictable. We've seen it in other things.
Your complex facilities with
And This Side of Paradise, the Star Trek episode, where again the whole crew mutinies except for Captain Kirk because he's so manly.
Your freedom threatens the safety of Alpha.
Oh, computer. You threaten the safety of Alpha.
And I also like that, which didn't happen too often with where computer was causing problems. I think the female voice gives it a personality as such. But there's a nice Twilight Zone air of not only of a man, finding all his friends have turned against him, but also a man fighting computer logic.
Well, a few days' solitude will soon straighten him out. Tell you what, we'll leave him in the Eagle, and then when he comes to his senses, he can join us in his own good time.
Okay.
So Koenig's pacing. It's how you can tell the situation is really serious. Koenig is pacing up and down. Oh, the lights have gone out. Which can only mean everybody is about to clear off. And if everyone's leaving Alpha, that also means stock footage of eagles! Oh, I could watch this stuff all day. And that's it. Everybody's off to Piri, leaving Koenig very much alone in main mission. And it's only now that it's just him there. You really get a sense of how huge that place is. I should say you get even more of a sense how huge that place is, because it's always looked huge.
Now I'm all by myself.
All right, computer. I have to talk to someone.
Auxiliary services available only. Computer has removed to planet Piri.
That's an odd idea. I don't know if someone actually physically removed computer or if it just transferred itself to Piri. We don't really see any sense of computer returning later on with the rest of the Alphans. Nobody's carrying a little box or anything. Perhaps a little black box with a flashing red light on the top.
I took you for a strong old man, Jean-Claude. But just how long do you think you can last? 3 days of despair have reduced you to pills to help you sleep the hours away. If only you would choose the Pirian way.
There we go. Everybody's on the planet, staring up at the big white Christmas tree.
Fought hard in the struggle for survival.
With goofy smiles on their faces. I really like the way that effect is done. The way she quickly heals his injuries. It's not dwelt on at all. She just waves her hand, jump cut, and it's gone. And the jump cut for once matches so well.
And enjoy the peace that you've earned for your people.
Now, there's nothing in the episode that really explains why Koenig is the only man who can resist the lure of the Guardian. I think we're just meant to accept the whole, he is just so damn manly thing. But I seem to remember in the novels it was as the result of something else that had happened. I want to say it was from being hooked up to the computer in Missing Link.
Her appetites...
being on the life support system, having been mentally on Zeno, had some kind of influence on him here. He just punched a TV screen.
No. Leave me with my pain. It reminds me I'm human.
And that's a very Captain Kirk line, although the line I'm thinking of actually came after this episode was made. It's from one of the films. I want to say Final Frontier, in fact.
I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain.
Your computer was not sabotaged. It was merely taken over for the Guardian's use. Of all things on Alpha, its mind was most nearly perfect.
Which by default means that of all the Alphans on Alpha, Victor is the most nearly perfect, as he was the first one to be...
You say you're the sir?
Well, the first one that we saw influenced, even though Irving and Davis were on board the Eagle.
Perfection is absolute. You must be made perfect.
Which, of course, makes perfect sense, because we all love Professor Bergman. Anyway, Koenig has had enough of this silly woman being all supportive. He's going to go and teach these stupid Alphans a lesson. Because remember, he is just so damn manly.
Not even to have to worry about the problems of day-to-day subsistence. I used to dream about this.
And here on Piri we can see that a lot of the Alphans have chosen to get out of uniform, and a lot of the men are bare-chested, but of course none of the ladies are bare-chested. But interestingly, the ladies who have stripped out of uniform, with the exception of Helena and Sandra, i.e. the regulars, all of the female extras who aren't in uniform all seem to be wearing the same blue towel type thing. It's like standard issue casual gear, if that makes sense. Anyway, Koenig is now on Piri. Oh no, Sandra doesn't have the blue jacket that Helena does either, so...
The Pirians, where are they?
Oh, and this looks so painful.
Sandra!
Oh, it looks almost like he rips, he breaks Xenia's neck the way he just jerks it.
But this is beautiful.
Oh dear.
Paul, I need your help.
We're all so happy.
The Pirians, where are they?
We're happy.
Oh, we won't see Paul this happy again until he finds those shrooms.
Helena!
Oh, so actually, going back on what I said, Helena is the only one who seems to have like a blue jacket to go with her
Easy coming.
Casual blue smock thingy. Oh, and there's a female security guard there.
Helena!
Which is a rare sight. A woman with the purple sleeve of security.
Helena, why didn't you answer me?
John, you've come to join us at last.
Again, I love the way so many of them are acting so casual here. It must be fun to do something like this, play something a bit different from the normal character. Anyway, Koenig has apparently already come up with a plan to fix the Alphans, which he's going to try out on Helena. You would have thought, since he cares so much for her, he would have trialled this on someone he doesn't know. Or maybe not, maybe he knows she'd be willing to take the risk if she was in her right mind. But yeah, he seems to have come to the conclusion that I think this is some kind of electrocution type machine. I don't know where he got the idea that this would work, but it seems to be working fine.
Lie back, Helena.
He does say what it is. What is it? Oh, she says what it is.
Shock treatment. Had my heart stop.
Worse, much worse.
How did he know that shock treatment would fix it? I mean, slapping Kano didn't do anything.
Helena, you were in a trance. Think hard. Were there any machines?
Nothing. Nothing moves. There's no sign of life.
No sign of life.
I'm not sure why they play this moment as such a surprise reveal, considering that, you know, aside from the girl, we have seen no life.
That's it. There is no life. There are no Pirians.
Yeah, it's not so much a shock reveal when that's exactly the way we've seen the planet for the rest of the episode.
Pirians' task is to take pain from your lives and make them perfect.
We are grateful! We are grateful!
Catherine's giving her orders to the Alphans.
We are happy! We are happy!
And peaceful.
We are peaceful!
And it's also fun to see her and Barry Morse acting together again, because they were co-stars in another ITC series made just a few years before this, called The Adventurer. And, you know, we've all seen those great shows, you know, The Saint and Champions and Randall Hopkirk and all that stuff. Well, the Adventurer is the bottom of that barrel.
You must destroy him.
Well, it's more what you find on the underside of the barrel when you take it to the dump to throw it out. But it's an interestingly awful show, and yet these two had so many scenes together.
Go back to Alpha.
But we always wondered what it would be like in the second season if Victor and Maya ever met up. Anyway. Everyone's now out to get Koenig and Helena, and some of the extras are chipping in with some
Stay back.
Some poorly chosen ad-libbed lines, which I know from experience. Oh, that's Matthias down. It's not the easiest thing to do. And Alan's down too.
Alan, this way. He's only stunned.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, we would assume that you wouldn't kill Dr. Matthias.
There's no place on Piri for you, Koenig.
You're destroying our peace, Koenig. We're going to kill you now.
And Pete Irving is down as well.
Where are your own people? They don't exist, do they? No, because they died. Just as my people are dying right now. Of total apathy.
So I'm going to shoot you in the face. Oh. Yeah, I'm not quite sure if Koenig knew she was a machine, but he definitely aimed at her face. And to be fair, it's quite a mildly gruesome reveal.
This is what passes for life on Piri.
As does essentially the climax of this story is shoving a shop window mannequin down some stairs. And now that that's busted, the Guardian is exploding. Everyone is suddenly free of the influence of it and is running for their lives. Also, there are bubbles. Quite a few bubbles.
Balloons going out of orbit!
Oh, and that as well.
Head back to the ships!
And this mad stampede back to the Eagles is, again, so many extras in this scene. And it's worth, if you're not familiar with this scene, it is worth watching this several times over again to see what people are doing, because more than one person bangs their knee for real on the edges of these large wooden rectangular things. Oh, there we go. Yep. A woman from the technical section just smashed her knee into the solid corner of this thing, and it looked like a pretty nasty, genuine injury. And one of the other extras, I think his name's Loftus Burton, he grabbed her and was just, keep going. If we stop, we're all going to die. It looked very genuine. And here,
main motors.
That was Gareth Hunt. Clearly not his voice, but absolutely unmistakably Gareth Hunt, who was originally cast as Pete Irving. But Hunt had an argument with the director and got himself sacked after presumably having filmed, just that little snippet. So then Michael Culver was cast as Pete Irving, and they were thinking, well, we've still got this footage of Gareth Hunt getting into an Eagle and taking off. He doesn't have to be Pete Irving, it's a mass evacuation, everybody's leaving the planet now, so we can reuse that footage, and here we go, Gareth Hunt in Space 1999. Uncredited, and without his voice, and another close-up of him there as well. And this is another sequence where in HD you do see a lot of the wires, but we never saw. You wouldn't probably have seen the wires at the time. I like as well where you've got shots like these of multiple Eagles. One's just taking off, the other's already up, and another is clearly just leaving the atmosphere. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. It might have been 12. I can't count very well. Eagles heading back to Alpha there. I hope that's not everybody, because 300 people into 12 ships would be quite a squeeze. And it was clear the regulars weren't taking anybody with them. But there's a bit of greenery growing on Piri now, as the moon leaves orbit. Also, again, lots of bubbles.
So when you destroy the girl, you destroy the Guardian.
And I think, actually,
no Guardian to suspend time. Time was restored.
I should probably wind that back, actually. I'm not going to, because we're so near the end. But I think also there's a butterfly floating around on the remains of the Pirian girl there.
Planet Piri now has life, water, vegetation, everything.
We brought a dead planet back to life.
Planet of butterflies.
Stayed.
There's a nice sort of slightly poignant end to that planet, but at least they've given that one little butterfly his own planet. And that was Guardian of Piri, which for, it's kind of a standard idea, the lone leader against all of his people who've turned against him, but it's pretty effectively realised here, and it's always nice to see the regulars acting out of character for a little bit. And of course, two things stand out from that one, really. The gorgeous planet set, and seeing Catherine Schell a whole year before she would come back turning into tigers and foxes and all sorts of other things. So, pretty decent episode, and looking forward to seeing Catherine again.
Space 1999, Season 1,
Lovely.
Yeah, because I was about to sing. I know how much you'd love it when I sing. The Derek Wadsworth theme, which is one of those other ones where the melody follows the title.
Yes,
Space
that's right.
1999. Anyway, season 1 just reminds me how much I love Barry Morse's Victor Bergman. It's just such a great
wonderful performance.
character. I just,
and sorely missed in season 2, really.
Absolutely, yes. A real loss of in the mix there, but it just, when you see a character on telly and you think, I wish I had like a relative like that, like an uncle.
Right, yes.
I would have loved an Uncle Victor. Just that kind of, he's got that cool attitude that kind of, I don't know, it's a really controlled, paternal, logical approach, but kind of so passionate about science and learning and that kind of thing.
Yep.
That they naturally infect you with that interest, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And a real twinkle in the eye as well. That's the joy of it, isn't it? Not too pompous. It could have been a very pompous character, I think.
Yeah, easily. And we mentioned it before, it's a bit like a kind of Doctor Who type character. Very kind of Pertweean or Troutonian.
Oh, I like it.
Is that the right adjective?
Yeah, it's great.
Let's say he was Troutonian then. Yeah, lovely stuff. Anyway, thank you, Chris. I suspect there will be more Randomiser in Pod 106, won't there?
I should imagine so. I hope it's more Space 1999, because we've spoken about this before. It's one of my earliest memories of Gerry Anderson stuff. And for me, it was the look, it was the design of the future. It felt like peering into the future. Now, I know a lot of people don't like it. It's very sterile and very sort of antiseptic and not much character to the sets and so on. But to me, it was like that's how I thought the future was going to be.
Totally.
How disappointing to actually get to 1999. And it's nothing like that. At least it's not in my house.
No, sadly.
Although I do have, of course, the skin-tight pyjama onesie.
Yes, and the flares, right? Yeah, you're always wearing those. And those strange belts, which really constrict you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I know. Just a bit too high up, right under the ribs.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Odd.
Fashion statement. Anyway, yes. More,
Sorry, are we still recording?
We are, yes. We're still talking and people are weirdly listening. Yes, that's the end of this week's Randomiser. More next week. If you've enjoyed any particular element this week or have anything you'd like to say or any questions you have for us, then please do email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Yeah.
Or tweet us, like Richard has said. I'm not going to repeat that because it's weird. And if you want even more Randomiser and you've missed any in the past or you just like to re-listen to them, then just search Gerry Anderson Randomiser on your podcast service of choice and you can listen to them in isolation. Chris is putting out one a week every Sunday, right back from the very beginning, so they must be about sort of 12 or 13 Randomisers in so far, I believe, maybe even more.
Yeah. Great. And we do ask you, of course, to subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on and leave us a nice rating, as have a few people. I've got a couple here from Apple Podcasts. So, Jaw2890, for example, a brilliant podcast from start to finish. I especially enjoy the interviews in the Randomiser. Absolutely hilarious. This is the first and only podcast series I've subscribed to, and I'm loving every minute of them each and every week, he says. J.M. Todd says, this podcast is too hard to not listen to.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's quite torturous, isn't it?
It's a good phrase, though.
Yeah, it probably is. And finally, Dave says an interesting and amusing podcast presented by Richard James and Peter Crouch, which greatly complements Richard's series of Inspector Bowman Victorian. Oh, sorry, that's a review from my Bowman VR podcast. Sorry, yeah, that's a mistake. But actually, my favourite review, and I think you may have seen this as well a few weeks ago on YouTube. I can't remember the name of the contributor, but simply commented under one of our videos, "Cut the chat." Which I thought was fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it is fair enough. It's what we're all thinking, Richard, isn't it, to be honest?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Hit the nail on the head there. But yes, please do leave us a review, leave us a nice star rating, and of course, don't forget to share us with your friends so our listenership grows to eventual world domination. That's where we're heading.
Were you saying we haven't already dominated the world?
I think we might have done.
First the Earth, next the rogue planet Verspona.
Great.
Can't help but say it that way. It just feels very natural.
Done. Yeah.
Right, so if you haven't watched Zero X, pop along to the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, youtube.com/GerryAndersonTV, and watch Zero X and share it with all of your friends and everybody else you can find in the entire world and let them know about it and make them watch it. And there'll be more of that next week, as there will be more Gerry Anderson Podcast next week in Pod 106.
True.
But until then, Richard and I are going to go somewhere else and do something else. So
that's true.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Act 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The question is, Richard James.
Yes?
What something else are you going to do?
Today?
Yeah, right now. What are you going to do after this?
I have finally finished all the painting downstairs. So I'm going to go and sit by the river at the bottom of my garden with several cups of coffee and do a bit of writing. That's my day.
Goodness me.
Doesn't that sound nice?
That does sound lovely.
Also, I have to say, for the first time in probably about 3 or 4 weeks, my back isn't hurting. So I had the absolute joy of putting my own socks on this morning. Yeah.
That's
worth celebrating.
That is a first world problem, though. You know,
it really is. Hey.
Having other people to put your socks on.
I know. No, it's not staff. It's just Scarlet. You know, they're not employed to put my socks on.
Yeah, maybe they don't see it that way, but
well, perhaps not. And you, what are you up to?
I've already put my own socks on, and
Great.
Yes, I'm off to edit a couple of storylines for something which we talked about before this, and then do some other stuff which we can't talk about in public. I mean, it's not because it's illegal.
Why can't we talk about it?
Because it's not. I know it's annoying, isn't it?
It's really annoying because everyone will be so excited.
Well, they'll all get to share in it eventually.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, right, you go off and do your very important coffee drinking and sitting down, and I will go off and do my other stuff.
Yeah.
Have
See
a
you soon.
lovely day. Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.